Hiya Dave, great to meet up with you and do another session on the range earlier this week. Just a quick recap on a couple of key main points that we discussed. Your main two issues really are that the club is too far in at P6. So the club and the shaft go from above the right arm to below the right arm far too quickly. P5.5 to P6. At this point now, the club face is severely inside the hands. And down on the ground, we've got this huge corner to turn. 9 times out of 10, we won't make that turn. The arms will get thrown off the rib cage. We're going to hit out excessively, swing directed too much out to the right, and then really from there, it's sort of, how do you want to, there are various ways of turning that corner. What most players will do is what you do, and that is roll the hands far too much, overtaking rate too high. And the problem when we make this sort of move through the hip is any number of things can happen. If the club passes the hands and the left hand, the accumulator 3, rolls too much, that's a quick hook. If the lead wrist, in an attempt to prevent the hook, just flexes, that's the push cut. And every now and again we'll get it just right and we'll hit a nice shot. When you've got a swing that's shifted so far to the right, the low point will also tend to be a little bit chaotic. The angle of attack coming into the ball will be a little bit shallow, and there's a distinct possibility your low point will be back behind the golf ball. So a few low point issues, just nuisance value really, and tidying up. First of all, where the club is at P6, so that we don't need to turn such a big corner at P7. And then also looking at turning the corner in a more appropriate manner. And that's the sort of bulk of the session that we did. So most of the footage that we took was from down the line, and the improvements that we talked about, or the changes that we talked about, were going to be created by improving this position here at P6. So initially, club far too in behind the hands, swing direction far too much out to the right at this point, and too big a corner to turn down at impact. What we've done here is we've put the cane out in front of you, 6 inches in front of the left shoulder, on a level with the left shoulder, and at roughly 90 degrees to your inclination to the ground. And the only advice you've been given here at this stage is to make sure that you keep the arms beneath the cane throughout the sort of post-impact, if you will. And the act of doing this starts to encourage the club to come a little bit more back in line with the hands at P6. So now straight away we've got a less severe corner to turn, which means if we do push it, the push is going to be less substantial. Because the push is going to be less substantial, the rate of closure on the club face will tend to start to calm down a little bit. What this is also going to encourage you to do during the drill, it's going to encourage you to keep the chest moving a little bit more continuously and control the direction that the arms are swung through impact. So we're turning that corner now a little bit more by using the turning of the body through the hip. If you turn too much too soon, the club will get pulled onto the left arm in transition. It would stay well out in front of the hands, and that would pose its own unique set of problems. But all we're trying to do here is use this drill as, first of all, to realign the swing. And then as the session progressed, we started talking about, this is a really nice visual to take out on the golf course to ensure that you turn the corner at the bottom with a little bit less rolling of the hands. Long term, that'll really start to calm down anyway. And, you understand your swing style enough to appreciate that you've always had that sort of, that look through impact. And if you tidy that up a little bit and you remove the need to do that, that rolling of the hands, that high overtaking rate, then your golf ball really gets under control pretty quickly and you play some good golf. So it's not about making the swing perfect, it's about making the swing functional. You can see on the way through, the exit is much, much lower and the rate of closure on the club face is substantially different. We also talked about the right heel popping up a little bit less. So because there's a little bit more turn and flex going on, the extension is starting to become a little bit more controlled. On the left, the rate of extension is just a little bit high. On the right, everything's balancing out a little bit more for you. So shaft to the left of the lead shoulder, keep the arms beneath it. That lines the club up at P6, reduces the severity of the corner that we need to turn at P7, which in time will start to reduce the amount of club face closure we have through the hit. When doing the drill, it looks substantially different. Out in the real world, it only really needs to be a little bit different to produce some really good shots. So great work on the long game. We spent some time then talking about the short game. And I'm just going to get this up for us. The initial footage. We were struggling off some bad lies, some tight lies. So what we did was we put you on the sort of tightest lie we can create out in the studio, which is on top of the strike board. And we just got you hitting some shots. Didn't really give you any advice initially, just asked you to hit some shots off it. Low point was a little bit all over the place. We saw that in the takeaway, the butt of the club. We didn't talk about this, the change sort of occurred, but initially the butt of the club gets outside the right thigh. The wrist cock is a little bit too passive for my liking in the early part of the swing. So what we've just done is brought into play, there's a distinct chance that we could hit the ground behind the ball at that point. We then, after hitting off the mat, or hitting off the hitting board, should I say, the strike board, we observed that the wrist started to engage a little bit earlier and the butt of the club didn't get as wide, didn't move away from you as much in the early part of the swing. So, there's less of a chance of this player hitting the ground behind the ball than there is this player, all things being equal. Radius not quite as wide. Angle of attack or radius at that point, very similar. We've not had to work as hard to get the butt of the club forward. We're not quite as far forward here on the left as we were on the right. So the butt of the club's a little bit more advanced in relation to your stance. You've got the ball a little bit further forward. That was something else that you started to become a little bit more comfortable with as you progressed. But the butt of the club, the release point, is a little bit further forward in the stance. The radius is a little bit tighter. And then what we discussed was the length of through swing arc needs to be appropriate to the type of shot that you're playing. Your low point control on the right hand side was much better. When you're playing a lob shot off a tight lie, or playing a lofted wedge off a tight lie, we need to keep the loft. We've got the bounce on the club. There's not really much we can do about that. We need to make sure that the low point doesn't occur too far behind. So we have to have a little bit of a steepening move in the downswing. The act of creating a shorter arc shifts the plane to the left and just steepens the angle of attack enough to keep the low point forward and create the strike that you desire. A lot of variables involved. We talk about, when you're pitching, your main concern is controlling ball speed. There's a number of variables that you can use to add or take away a little bit of ball speed. Your style of chipping over the years, I've seen you grow through the game, and over the years, you've always had, like with your long game, that look through the ball where the club overtakes the hands a little bit. You're very good at maintaining loft, and you're very good at creating loft. You aren't necessarily the best in the world at de-lofting a golf club through impact, and that's fine. There's no right and wrong way of doing it. Some players are better at doing one than the other. So you're better at maintaining, maybe even adding a little bit of loft, or certainly maintaining loft through impact, keeping the bounce on the club, relatively shallow angle of attack. So therefore, when it comes time to hit a low shot, instead of moving the ball back in your stance and taking loft off the club and exposing the leading edge, which then requires a much longer arc in the through swing, something that you're not really demonstrating on a regular basis, you're far more suited to just taking a less lofted club and trying to keep everything very, very similar to the way you would normally do it. Loft at impact is the key. It's not the loft that you pull out of the golf bag. That needs to suit your style of play. So when you're out there playing, I fully expect to see, if you were in the play in the fairway along with another guy who was better at de-lofting the club, he might take 58 out of the bag. You might take 52. At impact, you could both have a dynamic loft of 45. It wouldn't really matter. So the main thing that the ball understands is the dynamic loft on the golf club. Loft at impact is what we're trying to create, and we're trying to do it in a manner that suits our tendencies. You're more of a sort of shallow angle of attack, high overtaking rate sort of guy, which is fine. The thing that we've got to make sure is that the radius doesn't get too wide and we can control that low point. So really enjoyed the session. Talked about a lot of various details. Really enjoyed it. It was great to see you out on the range again and spend some time on your game. It's been a while, but I'm sure we'll get together again in the very near future. Good luck with it. I'm sure 2016 is going to yield a lot of low scores, especially when you tidy that short game up and get that driver in the fairway like you did towards the end of your session. Well done, and look forward to working again soon.